so we're now with our part two. Yeah, so they have a really horrible demise, and it's pretty tragic, but coincides with the Christmas tree. So that's what I will say if you haven't seen it. And they are able, they're successful based on those horrific events. They finally get the 500 million subscribers, but it came with that cost. So anyway, moving on. I thought that was unique. I liked that episode too. The naughty list. Uh, I believe this came soon after. This is called Baal. I'm not sure if I'm butchering it, but nonetheless, Billy Lord, Carrie Fisher's daughter, is in this episode, and I'm telling you, she's up there when it comes to these episodes because I think she does a phenomenal job of acting as insane or supernatural as possible. So in this particular episode, we see that she is married but is infertile, and they want to have a family. She's tried in vitro. She's tried a number of things because in her character in the episode is wealthy, because of history in terms of her late great grandparents. So she's a legacy of that, and she's been able to live very well based on that. She marries an actor who seems like the perfect husband, doting husband is there for her. As she goes into her last in vitro appointment, where again they've told her that the chances is unlikely of her being pregnant, she's met with the receptionist who says that she's had this particular statuette that was successful in her family to procreate, and by chance, she's used everything else, so she was like, why not? She puts it under her bed, is able to make love to her husband, and lo and behold, she becomes pregnant and she has a baby boy. So this particular episode has a lot of instances that felt very much like Rosemary's Baby, because then all of a sudden she starts kind of regretting that she had the child, and the child just doesn't warm up to her, and she's tried a number of things, but the child won't stop crying. They have a nana. She's able to lull him to sleep, but not her, and so she's like, am I a bad mom? So much that I wanted to be a mom, and now it just seems like a nightmare. And she notices that she comes across, like, I would say the kid already has, like, maybe the child is about a year old, and so she hadn't really checked under her bed. This is the one thing that people question online, and I did too, because I was like, how filthy must it be under the bed that you didn't go back after you made love to your husband and you became pregnant? Wouldn't you put that in, like, some kind of, like, closet or whatever the case may be? Is it a precious momentum? But no, she left it under the bed. But notices that the figurine has changed. It now all of a sudden adorns horns and kind of like wing-like, wings. So it's changing. It's changed from like this little blob. It started off as a little blob, and now it's looking like a little demon. She tries to put it away, but starts noticing in like the baby cam that there's something hovering over the baby's crib. And this is where instances are brought up where it seems like she's going insane. Maybe it's postpartum depression. She's hallucinating. She goes even to a therapist. Lo and behold, we find out, spoiler alert, that the husband was not the picture perfect husband that he was portraying to his wife. He basically had always ambition to marry her because of her wealth, and he wanted to live very well and still be able to do what he loved, which was acting. Eventually, I think what he wanted to do was just drive her insane, that she would commit herself to an insane asylum, and he recoup all the money that would be hers by inheritance. And I don't know necessarily what he would have done with the child. And the helpful receptionist, just goes to show, can't trust everybody, was his mistress. So she had been in on the plan. The figurine was changing because they were purposely doing it to her. He had a group of friends that were helping him, and I think they were going to get all their own cuts. So the figurine was changing. So while she's thinking she's going insane, and she's even seeing imagery of a devil-like demon, it was their friend getting dressed in costume and scaring the living crap out of her, to the point where she goes to the point of actually uh, performing a ritual. And in the process, her husband comes in, and what you assume is, her conjuring spells or conjuring spirits, and there's all this like smoke, which they were the culprits behind it. They had gotten dry eyes. I mean, it was a whole production. And she ends up injuring her husband by mistake, and doing that, they call the cops, and she is committed into, I think, like a 72-hour hospital, whatever the case may be. But then she finds out what her husband had really been up to, and she makes him pay. Because in the process, it turns out in her ritual, she did conjure up that particular demon, and he went nuts. He killed all of them, and then the one left holding the bag, including his little mistress, is her little cunning husband. And so he is to serve some serious time in jail. And it seems like everything's kind of like wrapped up in a little bow by the end of the episode, but she ends up wanting more children, and the demon is still around, and because she conjured him, he's loyal to her. So she's like, I want another baby. So in a way, we still kind of get a Rosemary, even though the first child was perfectly innocent of any wrongdoing or any conjuring or any demon spawn, but the second one might be, right? So I thought that was a really good and interesting episode as well. Now moving forward to Pharrell. I didn't really care for this episode. It was kind of reminiscent of The Hills Have Eyes. It was, people who live in the middle of wilderness and a park that's kind of devouring people. A couple, wanting to go camping, and they have a love for nature, bring their little toddler with them, basically to explore nature and to get risky. And in one of these morning walks, they lose the kid. Oh my God, they spent years trying to find the child. The child just went missing. They could never find him in this ginormous park, forest, or whatever the case may be. The only good thing that we had about this episode was Cody Fern, and I'm a big fan of his. I think he premiered in American Horror Story season 9 for Apocalypse, and ever since then, I think he did 1984 as well. But this is the first time that we hear his actual accent, Australian accent, because people forget that he is not. He's not American. He's Australian, and so we hear his beautiful accent, which I was like, kudos, yes. That's the only thing I liked about it. Unfortunately, this family gets duped out of, they're led to believe that their son is alive. They go back to the very forest where they lost him. Turns out that the guy was just trying to dupe them and to get money out of them and then kill them. And then it turned out that whatever he made up was true. There are forest people, monster-like people, basically tearing into people like wolves. And in the many, they have a king, and the king is like maybe a young teenage boy. Turns out to be the couple's missing child. And instead of them having this beautiful reunion and, oh my God, those are my parents, and I think he recognized them, he led his team of scavengers to basically eat his parents right in front of him. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I did not like this particular episode. I could have done without it. And the last one too, I didn't really care for it either. It's like a culmination of the first two episodes of Murder House. I think a lot of people were like, okay, we're done with Murder House. We love Murder House for what it was, but unless it has Jessica Lange, we don't really care. So we see the end of that. And basically also like the end of Murder House, because spoiler alert, they burn it down to a crisp and then they rebuild on top of it. The surviving character from the first two episodes, she's become some professional assassin. Oh, and that's the thing, that's the clincher here, with it has some kind of meta um, hints in this episode, because we see that the reason why we visit the murder house is because I believe she's a former writer or marketer, and then she wants to go into video gaming to kind of impress her kid, but at the same time make money for her kid for some future in terms of college. And then so they create the American Horror Story video game. And when the child first like tinkers with it, is like, what are you doing? Did you actually get the essence of it? You're putting characters from other seasons, it doesn't make sense. And so she goes to Murder House and she tries to get more of an understanding, and she starts watching it nearly every episode. But her ambition gets the best of her, and she meets her demise in the house as well. So now she's trapped there. A year later, her son realizes what she had done, and she had lost her life because of this crazy ambition. And then he decides to burn it to a crisp. So towards the end, yeah, the surviving character, the sadist from the first two episodes, she's able to buy the property and somehow is able to reconnect with her former flame in the house, Cindy Crawford's daughter, and happily ever after. And we see like fireworks made out of blood, and I was like, what? And then it turns out that it had never really happened. It was just like how the mom was able to tinker back with the video game and make it better. Honestly, it was kind of like a mess, but whatever. I don't necessarily know why the storyline went the way it did. Maybe a lot went into the fact that, we went into lockdown, so they were just trying to do the best that they can. Nonetheless, they were greenlit for a season 2, so maybe next summer we'll see more episodes and maybe they'll be a little better. But of the bunch, those were my favorites. Definitely Drive-In, The Naughty List, Baal, and yeah, that's it. And for all, again, I only liked it because Cody Fern was in it. So that's the recap. I know that I said it would be short, but I had to explain those specifics. And now I'm gonna go into American Horror Story double feature season 10 that already premiered about a week or 2 weeks ago. We're already up to to episode 3. And I've been enjoying it. Now I'm curious how this is all gonna tie together, because according to the rumor mill, season 10 is supposed to tie all 10 seasons. Although we are seeing instances like we did in Stories, with influences of other seasons. But how is this season in particular gonna tie in 10 seasons? Like, I'm curious. Anyway, stay tuned for this. I'm going to try to keep it brief. Review of the last 3 episodes of American Horror Story, and we shall be back.